Hey, Gov Seekers. Thank you so much for tuning in. It's episode 146. I apologize for being late. It's been a busy afternoon. Scraped my car. Not happy about it. Nobody's fault but mine. But we're just gonna have to move on. We're gonna have to deal with that. Welcome, Holly Horn and Blaze Silver Wolf, our moderators. Like, share, and subscribe. Everybody watching on my YouTube channel, on Lee Camp's YouTube channel, hit the subscribe button, the like button, share this out on your social media, and of course, everybody watching over on the Rockfin. We appreciate that. I think we should get right into it. Ladies and gentlemen, it's time for Government Secrets, episode 146 with the two most censored comedians in America, Lee Camp and Graham Elwood. Woo!
Hey, how's it going, man?
Good, buddy. How are you doing?
Good. Hanging in there.
Hanging. Oh, what happened to your backdrop?
Is it cutting out?
Yeah,
if it's possible maybe there's a black frame at the end of the loop. I'm working on it. It's in the process.
Oh, so that's just a loop of just the world spinning around?
No, it's live feed of the world.
So you have your own satellite? Is that what you're telling me, basically?
Yep. Live feed. Most people don't know that the Earth looks like this, but
wow.
I'm trying to make my show look as official as possible, but still make it so I can say the phrase anal leakage on a regular basis. So I don't know if I've got it perfect, but
now, is that a green screen or do you have a screen behind you?
Screen.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
I did that, but then I just kept moving too much and it was being too costly to have to get new TVs.
Dude, I would never. If I were moving, I would never do this.
Yes. When I started moving, I was just like, that's when I just went with this, like, let's just print this thing up and,
No, I hear you. I mean, for the first year of my live streams last, whatever, a year ago, I just sat in front of a bookshelf. So
which is a fine backdrop, a bookshelf,
It's true. But I wanted a rotating bookshelf, slowly rotating.
A translucent, futuristic bookshelf with other bookshelves circling it. Like your thing behind you now, I can't take my eyes off it. There's obviously things going around, like the planet Earth has rings, or
again, most people don't know that the planet Earth has laser rings around it. But, that's the thing, is people learn new things on this show, Graham.
I was thinking the Earth was flat, but apparently it's not. It's
round with rings.
Round with rings.
And if you get to drive your car on one of those rings, it is so fun. It's so fun.
That's great, buddy. You have kind of a crazy topic today.
Yeah, it's an offshoot of a topic we did a while back. And certainly a topic we've mentioned a bunch. You want to start with that one?
Yeah, let's do that one. I mean, mine's pretty just a nice list, a laundry list of the top 10 presidential scandals.
And I bet we can make fun of those. I bet those will have some humor.
Especially I just went for the first 10 presidencies, just about.
Everybody knows, was it Taft that got stuck in the bathtub? But most people don't know that Van Buren got his cock stuck in the toilet. So,
well, Van Buren was the inventor of the cock ring.
Yes, he was. A lot of people don't know that. That was his greatest accomplishment.
Yeah, that's where the term the Oval Office came from.
Yeah, you don't want an oval cock ring. It's really uncomfortable. It really is.
Yeah. So we'll get into that later. So what's your topic? What's Lee Camp segment number 1? Some crazy thing that happened that we're going to find out about.
Thank you. I was going to say I can't start until the funny voice has gone off. So we did an episode well over a year ago about the U.S.-backed coup of Chile in 1973. They took over the country and had Salvador Allende, suicided.
Right.
And we've mentioned that several times. We maybe mentioned this one time, but I wanted to do it more in depth because it really is incredible. It's the project that Allende was involved in during the years before they couped him. And anyway, let's get into it. So this article is coming. I'm going to get some from Wikipedia and some from socialistparty.org because as you can imagine, they were big fans of Allende. 50th anniversary of the 1973 coup in Chile, led by General Pinochet and the CIA, which overthrew the democratically elected left-wing government. And Graham, as you know, that is the only democratically elected left-wing government that the U.S. has ever couped.
God, I feel like maybe there was one other one, but I can't think of it.
I feel like there might just be 30 or 40 other ones.
Maybe like at least 3 dozen.
Yeah. So on September 1970, Allende was elected by the Popular Unity Party. Allende's government was headed by the Socialist Party of Chile and the Communist Party, and he set about implementing reforms such as an increase in minimum wage, free school meals, and redistribution of agricultural land. As you can imagine, the U.S. was not a big fan of this program.
I know it's crazy because all those programs kind of sound like what America claims it's about.
Free school lunches? I don't think so.
Helping the people, we're just about
same minimum wage for the past 40 years, whatever it's been. The new government embarked on a program of nationalization, which was really, I'd say that was the biggest reason they wanted to kill him. The U.S. owned copper industry and a large part of the banking sector were brought into state ownership. And by the way, state ownership in this case generally means these profits of these companies like banks and oil go to the people instead of to a tiny number of ridiculously wealthy individuals. The U.S. owned and the U.S. owned copper industry, which also infuriated the U.S. a great deal.
Yeah, but it's the same every time. Like there's resources that American businesses are profiting from, and these leaders have the audacity to actually want to take care of their citizens, which is always why they're so popular, and America swoops in and gets rid of them.
Yes, America swoops in with freedom.
Yeah.
By the start of 1972, all the mining companies and 68 other firms had been brought over into the public sector. Huge enthusiasm existed among the Chilean working class for Allende's government, which had, in a short period of time, overseen a significant increase in living standards. Isn't that also fascinating that when you take the resources of a country, let's say, the copper, and you stop giving all the profits to a tiny number of individuals and you start giving them to the people of that country in order to increase minimum wage, et cetera, the people of that country are then happier because they live better lives. Isn't that strange?
It sounds insane to me, Lee. It sounds insane to me. And it's like, thankfully, there's no examples of any current countries like in, I don't know, Western Europe that have really high standard of living because they have all these things that America doesn't have or America charges for, stuff like that.
There are no examples. That is true. So Allende appointed Fernando Flores as the general technical manager of Corfo, the government department in charge of the nationalization program. Flores, 28-year-old engineer, was enthusiastic about the potential of the use of computer technology, which in 1970, as you know, was not that sophisticated. By mid-1975, he had contacted, 1971, he had contacted Stafford Beer, a British management consultant who was a pioneer in the field of management cybernetics, the science of processing feedback and utilizing information within the context of closed systems. Beer, enthused by the idea's potential, abandoned his other work and began Project Cybersyn, an information support system designed to assist decision-making in the nationalized industries, emphasizing workers' control and management on the factory and shop floor. Beer traveled to the Chilean capital, Santiago, to meet with Allende and convinced him of the value of investing in Cybersyn. So I'll get into it more, but just to give people a little idea of what we're talking about, this is basically, and before internet, before fast computing, really, or a lot of fast computing, this was essentially real-time feedback from factories, from workers around the nation in order to better run the systems. And, you know, people like to talk, you know, get angry about, oh, that's central planning, and they're making decisions for a lot of people. And it's like, what do you think we have now? We have massive corporations that of just incredibly greedy, sociopathic individuals who make giant decisions for millions of people. And, you know, but instead it's all to the benefit of a tiny number of individuals. That's the main difference.
Yes. Capitalism.
Always works well. So let's see. Beer traveled to Chile and met with Allende and convinced him of the value of investing in Cybersyn. Cybersyn was a significant innovation as one of the first operational large-scale computer systems outside the military and scientific fields. In some ways, it was the great-grandparent of the modern internet and big data, but using that data in a socially useful way instead of for capitalist profit interests. So having big data, but using big data to actually make things run quickly and smoothly and give the benefits to the people, as opposed to, again, a tiny number of individuals. The design for Cybersyn consisted of 4 component parts. Part 1 was CyberNet. This involved the installation of telex machines in every state-owned company premises, creating a single near real-time communication network between these industries and the government. This sounds natural in 2023, but in 1971 was a substantial step forward. And, you know, I was born in 1980. I know speak and spell was a big deal by 1984. Like, the fact that you could push a button and the thing said the word, that was a big step. So
yeah, so this was a precursor to speak and spell, it sounds like. Is that what you're saying, Lee, in your textbook?
I'm saying this is possibly even more advanced than speak and spell.
It's more
if it's possible.
God, if only we had a breaking news across the thing more advanced than speak and spell.
Yep.
That'd be pretty sweet.
This was 19 years before Tetris, okay? Do you get it? Do you get it now, people?
Yes, I do. I'm finally starting to see the light.
So that was the first part of the project, and it became operational. Part 2 was Cyberstride. These were the programs to collect, process, and distribute data in a useful format across the network. Part 3 was called Checo. This was the most ambitious undertaking and ultimately fell short of seeing the light of day before we managed to put a bullet in Allende. It was intended to be a real-time model of the Chilean economy, providing data to be able to predict likely future economic perspectives stemming from potential government actions. Like actually modeling, if we do this, what happens? And a lot of this, again, sounds like common sense nowadays. It's like, yeah, there should be computer models. This shit didn't exist back then and was ahead of its time. And if you had these models being used to help people, then it would be amazing. I mean, it would be
these robots would just go, oh, this is probably why the CIA was so threatened by this, because CIA would be like, oh God, a robot's going to predict that every single horrible thing we do is going to have awful effects down the road. And therefore the computer's just going to go, we have determined that the CIA is evil and should be shut down. And they're just like, nope.
Right. It's if you were to have a true computer model that didn't take into account profit and things like that, but instead took into account how people are doing and their health and their happiness, then it would just flash red every time you put capitalism into it and be like, system overload, crashing, cancer rates skyrocketing.
What if we're always so afraid of like a Terminator scenario, with especially now with AI that has only been about, the chat GPT has been around less than a year, and we're seeing it just like change, and people are losing jobs and all this crazy stuff. What if chat GPT just learned that capitalism was evil, and that's this future world where just these androids just take out billionaires and CEOs and just give the money to the people? What if that's what they did?
It just hacks into and explodes their cell phones and just kills them with their own phone.
Yeah. It just shoots lasers at all of their private jets and takes them down.
Or better yet, didn't even kill them. It just zamps them with their own phone into their balls, and to the point that they have to step down as CEO.
Yeah, they just can't reproduce their shitty kids either.
Yeah, no. So you can see how something like this would be a huge danger. And actually, we're going to the CIA and the capitalist models. We're going to see how it was a danger more in a second. Part 4 was the ops room, the futuristic looking room consisting of 7 chairs in a circle surrounded by screens displaying data collected and aggregated from the shops and factories. And Graham, you're going to love the look of the ops room.
Whoa! Oh my God! It's the first season of Star Trek.
It totally is Star Trek. And I looked up, and Star Trek came out before this, so maybe they did just get it from Star Trek. But.
Oh, I want to get an ops room. Like, I'm gonna have a game room in my home, and we're just gonna call it the ops room, and it's gonna be exactly like this.
I actually did have one of these I called the ops room, but it was where I did amateur operations on like vagrants I found nearby.
What? This is a weird time to suddenly find out that you're like a serial killer. You know what I mean? It feels like,
oh, Graham, come on. 77% of them survived.
It was for research. Everyone calls me a monster. I was trying to help.
They had an eyeball on their back going forward. Like
episode 146. We find out Lee's is an insane Mengele style doctor.
But you could see, and this room actually existed. I think this seems to be a mock-up, but the room actually did exist. Not all the displays were active, because that was kind of like they were hoping to get to that point eventually. But after they couped Allende and suicided him, they basically, started going through the various government locations and found this room.
And then they just put it in Tomorrowland at Disney.
Put it into Tomorrowland. This actually is in the Epcot Center on display. Yeah.
And there's just an animatronic Allende. I made the mistake of helping my citizens. That's why I deserve.
Note to self: never go against America.
It's a world of CIA coups. It's a world of capitalists murdering socialists.
So, yeah, this like incredible futuristic systems that he was putting into place to provide direct feedback to the government on the level of life satisfaction and happiness. The ops room had access to the telex network to transmit advice and instructions back to the workplaces. It was built but never used by Allende. And And I would imagine, those socialists out there. I wouldn't call myself a socialist because I think market economies will ultimately destroy everybody. But but that being said, to those socialists out there, you may go, well, that's not giving the power to the workers, but it actually did, and much of the planning was about giving the power to the factory floors. Yes, the information would still go through elected officials, and they would give advice and feedback, but the planning all showed that that it was to give a lot of power actually to the factory floors. Anyway, Cybersyn was put to good use, even if it's partially completed, even in its partially completed form. So, and I got to add a little bit here because they don't clarify this. The CIA's initial attempt to coup Allende was actually to try and shut down the economy via various strikes and things. They did the same thing in Venezuela. You may remember they got various groups to strike. They started covering, they got those same people to try and shut down highways with burning tires and string lines of wire across the highway so that motorcyclers would get, killed and shit. Like it was, they attempted to create mass mayhem. And if you can shut down, certain things of the economy, like the trucking sector, then you can cause shortages of food across the country, and people get furious, and they don't often understand that it's the CIA behind it. So sure enough, the CIA in 1972 got supported. This isn't to say that there wasn't any truckers that wanted to strike, but supported and helped foster 40,000 truck drivers into striking against the government. They were also egged on by the right-wing opposition in Chile, which was advised and probably funded by CIA, etc. This threatened to grind the economy to a standstill. So this very well might have crushed their economy to the point that Allende would have been booted and the CIA would have gotten what they wanted. But Project Cybersyn is actually what managed to get around this. Allende was able to use real-time data to plan and respond to the situation. In direct communication with around 200 truck drivers who remained loyal, the government was able to ensure the essential goods could be moved to the points of greatest need. Cybersyn also assisted the actions of the People's Supply Committees, which had been formed in working-class neighborhoods in response to the economic sabotage of the capitalists, in organizing food distribution on the ground. The strike was successfully undermined through the active participation of the working class, aided by Cybersyn. So you can imagine if the CIA and the U.S. government hated Allende to begin with, now Allende has proven he has a system that can get around their normal coup tactics.
Yeah. And they're like, nope, sorry, we have to take you out.
Yeah. The government was able to use, I haven't done that. Able to use Cybersyn to generate daily reports on national goods production and transportation. And again, I just want to stress, this stuff had never been done. Yes, there were reports that went to the government in most countries about moving of goods and things, but never real time. It would, they'd get there days, if not weeks later. And so this was really ahead of its time to have real-time information on where products are going and where they're needed, etc. And so they were ready to respond to points of crisis or sabotage. Previously, collating and processing that amount of data would have taken 6 months. Let's see. I'm going to jump over to the liberal worldview here. And look at Wikipedia for a second.
That's what they call WikiLeaks, liberal worldview.
It is. It's the neoliberal history of the world.
Yeah.
It's kind of like if you look at the this day in history list on Wikipedia. So you can type in any day and you see the list of historical events. I'd say 70 to 80% of them all are like US or Britain.
Oh yeah. It's such a like America and British centric.
Yeah.
We still do that. It's like we still celebrate these ridiculous royal weddings. There's like 100 some royal families around the world. Why do we give a shit that the Brits are married? Like these, who cares?
Because it's so glamorous, Graham. The information would also be input into economic simulation software that the government could use to forecast possible outcomes. And let's see, what was I going to say? So then the CIA coups the country. They empower Pinochet and help him lead the coup. They then suicide Allende. If you look at the official history, Allende committed suicide in his, governmental palace or whatever. Yeah. He had nationalized around 40% of the economy. At the time, the Chilean capitalist class remained largely in control of the means of production and distribution. Of this state-owned 40%, about 27% was using Cybersyn. So he'd only, of the Chilean economy, if you take 27% of 40%, we're talking a tiny fraction of the Chilean, like 10% or something, was actually using this system, and it was already showing massive progress and dividends. But partially to satisfy the oligarchs, the former oligarchs of the country, the people that had been kicked out of power when Allende came to power, he kept many of them in some level of power. I mean, he got them out of the government, but he let them continue to run a lot of these companies and things, which, if you take the people that hate you and lost the most by allowing you to have a socialist government, or not allowing, but when you start a socialist government, then they're going to use that power to bring you down. And he had left control of the state forces in the hands of the capitalist class. After the truckers' strike, he attempted to pacify the opposition by offering Pinochet a position in his cabinet. So Pinochet had even been in his cabinet. I mean,
oh, wow.
And of course, Pinochet becomes this god-awful dictator that kills tens of thousands, and the U.S. loves him. He's perfect. He's perfect.
Yeah, we just kind of let him do what he wants to do for what, 15 or 20 years or however long he was in power or whatever.
17, I think.
17
yeah, exactly. And we had no problem with that. We weren't trying to coup him. He was perfect for us.
It's great.
So Stafford Beer, who came up with Project Cybersyn and moved to Chile from Britain to help them create it, he said long afterwards, decades later in interviews, that he's kind of saddened that it's possible that because Cybersyn worked so well, it got Allende killed. If he believes that if Cybersyn had either failed or not been put into place, the truckers' strike and other efforts probably would have worked at coupping Allende, and Allende would still be alive, because they wouldn't have needed to kill him if they got him kicked out of power. So that's what Stafford Beer said decades later. But another thing to note about this, about actually using data to decide what people genuinely need as opposed to what can get a tiny number of people the most money, would also have other large ramifications even today. I mean, if you just look at Amazon, capitalists would say, well, look how quickly they get products to people, right? It shows up on your door the next day, and that's amazing. Yeah, Amazon also, not only do they horribly abuse their workers, but they also burn or trash in landfills millions of tons of products, because when they have a warehouse full of products, the things that aren't selling are just in the way, and they don't want to give them away because that would decrease the value of said products, and it would take a lot of effort to figure out how to get them to the proper place they're needed. So instead, they just burn, literally millions of tons of various types of merchandise. France says, you can find articles about France trying to make it illegal. Maybe I don't know whether they have succeeded at making it illegal for Amazon to do this, but that's just one example of if you were using data effectively, you would get all those products to the people that need them, and you wouldn't overproduce millions of products. I mean, the way we're living is just completely unsustainable and feckin' nutty.
If that isn't just the like apex of late stage capitalism, or literally, this is literally toxic capitalism, that they have to burn unsold products that just waste materials, put it in the ozone layer, like everything bad for the air, but just because it wasn't selling. Like,
yeah, I once saw, I was like walking through New York City at like 2 a.m. after leaving a comedy club, and there was an employee outside H&M, because New York City doesn't have alleys. There's just streets. So that means the big stores have to put their trash out on the sidewalk rather than in a dark alley no one's going to see. There was an employee out there slashing shirts, because what they do with products they don't sell is slice them so that homeless people can't take them and either resell them or wear them, because they view that as harming the brand, harming the worth. And so they just go through thousands. I mean, I'm probably understating it, thousands, millions, I don't know, of shirts, and just cut them up.
oh God, we have a horrible system.
Yeah. Anyway, that is Project Cybersyn, and it likely led to Allende. It was one of the things that led to Allende's assassination, because where's that image? I was going to go back to this image, because it worked so well, and it helped with the nationalization of Chile.
Happy New Year, everybody.
We could have had, everybody watches Star Trek and you think, what a lovely future where they're exploring and there's no one's trying to, no one on the ship is trying to beat up another guy for his sandwich. And look, we could have had it. This is Star Trek right here.
Yep. We could have had it. We could have had Star Trek. All right. Here's Government Secrets, segment number 2. Our first and best corrupt people with
our first and best shitty, corrupt, awful presidents.
Awful. There's not enough words to describe. So I just wanted to see like presidential like scandals, and Wikipedia has a list of like it's like almost every president has one. So I just was like, why don't I do we're calling it technically the top 10, but really it's just the first 10 scandals, just to show you that like our government has been corrupt from the jump, Lee Camp.
Yeah, and just to throw in here, I love sometimes idiot liberals will post a picture of Obama in the tan suit, and they'll say this was Obama's only scandal when he wore a tan suit, and it's dude, that asshole dropped tens of thousands of bombs on children. I don't think the tan suit was his big scandal.
The amount of space it requires for liberals to put their heads up their asses when it comes to the awful stuff that the Democrats have done is mind-blowing. Like,
causes anal leakage.
It does. Conservatives are pretty stupid about how awful the Republicans have been, but in some cases they're like, good, I'm glad Trump dropped a lot of bombs. Like, they're okay with the awful stuff that they did. Liberals think that these Democrats are these like saints that ride on horses, and they're like, sure, he wasn't perfect. It's like, no, he dropped more bombs than Bush. That right there makes him awful. It makes him a war criminal, just like Bush. But
yep. They actually assassinated an American child, a 16-year-old American citizen, because he was he the one that was the son of Anwar al-Awlaki? I don't know. I get them confused, but and they basically were like, well, his father. They didn't say, oh, whoops. They said, and I don't mean he was hitting a rogue bomb. I mean they assassinated just the son. And they tried to defend it. They said, well, he should have thought about who his father was. Literally, they said that.
Wow. I guess we get to kill Dick Cheney's daughter then. All right, let's start with the George Washington administration. So
now which president was he?
He was our first.
I knew it had like one of the ones in it. Yeah.
It has a one in it. Yep. Senator William Blount, a Democratic Republican from Tennessee, back then the parties were different, was expelled from the Senate for conspiring.
Actually, I like Democratic Republican because it just wraps it all up in one.
It just shows you
one thing.
Doesn't matter. Yep, put it in one bow.
Doesn't fucking matter.
He was expelled from the Senate for conspiring of his own accord to have Great Britain to take over Spanish-controlled Louisiana and Florida in order to boast local land prices. So, this is good old war profiteering, you know what I mean? And from the jump, and for real estate. Like it's good old, back in the late 1700s. Then the next administration, the John Adams administration, the XYZ affair was the French seizure of over 300 U.S. ships and demands for bribes and apologies, which led to a quasi-war, causing the U.S. Congress to issue the famous phrase, "Millions for defense, sir, but not 1 cent for tribute." Real war was averted by a treaty, but so
we
that was
stole 300 ships and demanded bribes. Is that it?
Yeah.
Oh.
Well, no, the French seized 300 ships and demanded bribes and apologies, but it was really, there's more to it. The XYZ affair. Similarly, we were basically provoking France. You know, we were like, and they were like, had to respond to it. You know, whatever. Yeah. It was typical colonizer stuff. But this is the other thing, the main scandal in the legislative branch of the John Adams administration. Matthew Lynch was a Democratic Republican from Kentucky, was the first congressman recommended for censure for spitting on Ralph Griswold, a Federalist from Connecticut. The censure failed to pass and was found guilty of violating John Adams and the John Adams Alien and Sedition Acts, and sentenced to 4 months in jail, during which he was reelected.
Good. So we have a history of electing people in jail.
Nutbags. Yeah.
So you said that censure didn't pass. I think the first one that passed was censuring the guy who put forward a bill to end slavery.
Yes. Yep. Yep. But they put him in, they found he was guilty of the Alien and Sedition Acts that John Adams created. Thomas Jefferson, our third president, there were several ones under Thomas Jefferson. General James Wilkinson was appointed to be governor of the Upper Louisiana Purchase. He then conspired with Spain to get Kentucky to secede from the Union in order to allow shipping on the Mississippi to reach New Orleans.
Kentucky to secede,
from the Union to allow shipping, just so he could profit from shipping. Then there was the Burr conspiracy under the Thomas Jefferson administration. Aaron Burr of the New Empire, basically, which is the Southwest. Burr allegedly tried to seize a large part of the Louisiana Purchase and establish his own country. He was arrested. Yeah.
That's even funnier, knowing that Burr was supposed to be Thomas Jefferson's vice president because he ran against Thomas Jefferson, and the loser before that would become vice president. Jefferson changed that so that Burr would not be his vice president.
Yeah. Yep. That's how it used to be.
And then Burr was like, well, I'll just take some of the country.
Yeah. He was arrested for treason by trying to siege part of the Louisiana Purchase, but he was acquitted for lack of evidence. Aaron Burr then dueled with Alexander Hamilton, and Hamilton died of wounds received during the duel.
Yep. Burr killed Hamilton.
Um,
Burr had a lot of irons on the fire. You know, I like a multitasker.
he really,
Lot going.
he was the first one of the hustle culture to be like, let's steal during the Louisiana Purchase and shoot a man in a duel.
They say fathers can't have it all, but he had it all. He was able to kill famous politicians and try and steal part of the country.
Yeah, he was really great. He wanted to be vice president so he could somehow become president. He probably Jefferson knew like this guy's going to try to kill me. This guy's going to poison my food and then become. So I don't trust this guy here at all.
Quite possible.
This is the Samuel Chase was the Supreme Court justice appointed. This is under Thomas Jefferson. Was appointed by George Washington and was impeached for political favoritism and acquitted in 1805. This is a second George Washington appointed federal judge. John Pickering was impeached and convicted in absentia by the U.S. Senate for drunkenness and use of profanity on the bench.
Dude, can you imagine how drunk you had to be back in early 1800s to get?
What? How did you get? So it was like, how drunk? Like, did he like whip his crank out and piss on someone? Did he like punch somebody? Like, what did he do? Like, what was it like back then?
I'm assuming fetal position, just bathing in his own vomit.
Did he just like try to pass crazy laws? Like he just like started doing accents? Like what happened? Like, there was, then the Benjamin Sebastian, U.S. Court of Appeals judge, was accused of Spanish conspiracy of being part of Spain. He resigned in disgrace. Well, a lot of judge problems back under Jefferson. Then, we skipped an administration, and we went to the James Monroe administration, where this was a corrupt bargain, was a supposed bargain by John Quincy Adams with Henry Clay. That was a corrupt. This was, let's more. Hold on. This was 3 events in American political history have been called corrupt. In 1824, the United States presidential election. Yeah. So there's not that much detail on this, but they called this a corrupt bargain. And the other one that was called the corrupt bargain was the Compromise of 1877. And then the third one was Gerald Ford's pardon of Richard Nixon.
They skipped a few up to Gerald Ford pardoning Richard Nixon.
There's a couple in there they skipped for sure. This is when it really gets interesting, is the Andrew Jackson administration. The Samuel Swartwout, I don't know how you pronounce his name, was appointed by President Jackson to the New York City collector's office. At the end of his term, he had embezzled $1.225 million in customs receipts, which in today's money would be about 30-some million, and used the money to purchase land. He fled to Europe to avoid prosecution.
Wow. Also, it's clear that in this list, they're thinking of like scandals, like people that were, I don't know, drummed out of office for corruption or whatever. They're not talking about like Andrew Jackson's Trail of Tears, which, right. I view as a scandal, but
yeah, this is just like this again. These are the Wikipedia scandals. This isn't like,
this is like this guy stole some money and they kicked him out of office. Yeah,
this isn't like Thomas Jefferson was knocking up his slaves and had a bunch of illegitimate children. There's those scandals.
Yeah. Looking back on it from here, I'd even call slavery a scandal.
Yeah, it might have been a little bit of a scandal. The Margaret O'Neill Eaton, the wife of Secretary of War John Eaton, was a central figure in the Petticoat affair, which involved accusations that she had engaged in an extramarital affair, and her social ostracism by the wives of other cabinet members, led by Floride Calhoun, the wife of Vice President John C. Calhoun.
Her name is Fluoride?
Fluoride.
Wow.
Yep. She was the first woman to lose all of her teeth. And let's see, Robert Potter, North Carolina congressman, resigned from Congress after castrating 2 men he believed were having an affair with his wife.
What? Wow. I like how they had believed. You know? What if one of those guys was like, I haven't even met her. Please leave my balls. Yeah.
And then later in North Carolina, he was expelled from its legislature for cheating at cards, or for pulling a gun and a knife during a card game. It's unclear.
So he was not punished for the castrating other people, but cheating at cards.
They just kicked him out of Congress for castrating 2 men.
But it was the cheating at cards that really
that draws a line. You can cut a dude's junk off just because he's tagging your wife, but boy, if you mess up a card game, that's, there's certain rules you don't break.
Yeah.
How can I trust you if you're going to cheat at cards? Then we go to the John Taylor administration.
That's not a real one.
Yeah, he was a president. Charles F. Mitchell, a Republican from New York, a U.S. representative from the 33rd District, was convicted of forgery, sentenced to 1 year in prison and fined, though he was paroled early due to poor health. Then
weren't those the times when you could get out of prison for poor health? Nowadays, they try and create poor health in prisoners.
Yeah. This, and I didn't realize, then that was the John Tyler administration, then the Zachary Taylor administration. The George W. Crawford was a Whig from the Whig Party out of Georgia. The Secretary of War in the cabinet of President Zachary Taylor, was the center of the Galfin affair land scandal with the help of Reverdy Johnson, an attorney general. I love these old-timey names.
I got to name the kid Reverdy.
Reverdy. Hey, Reverdy, come here. It's time for dinner. And Attorney General William M. Meredith, Secretary of Treasury, in which Crawford defrauded the federal government of $191,000. A lot of land scams. I mean, a lot of these guys were stealing land.
That seemed to be the thing to steal back then. Huh?
That was their go-to.
I mean, you got it. You do have to a little bit side with them, because they were probably like, this whole country is based on stealing all the land. I just stole a little piece.
Yeah, I know. I would have been like, why am I getting arrested? You guys stole the whole country. Why can't I get my little taste? I'm not greedy. I'm just stealing a little farm or something. Franklin Pierce administration. The Preston Brooks, a Democrat from South Carolina, was a U.S. representative and fervent advocate of slavery, beat abolitionist Senator Charles Sumner until his cane broke, leaving him bleeding and unconscious on the floor of the House of Representatives.
Yeah, I do recall that one. That was turns out beating a House rep to near death is frowned upon.
It's weird that the guy that was in favor of slavery was okay with beating another man to near death.
Yeah, you wouldn't think those two would go together.
Yeah. Then in the James Buchanan administration.
Thank you, Alex, for the donation.
Hey, Alex. In the Buchanan administration, U.S. Representative, you're going to love this name, Erasmus B. Matson.
Erasmus. That sounds like one of those like prank phone call names from the 1980s. Like, this is Erasmus P. Cornpone.
Yeah.
And I was wondering if you've seen my pet possum.
Yeah. Oh, really, Erasmus? Okay, we'll find your pet possum, buddy. So this was, yeah, he faced an allegation of having defamed the character of the U.S. House by declaring that a majority of its members were purchasable. Oh, wow. This was a crime? He himself was then accused of accepting money in exchange for supporting a Minnesota land bill. The House recommendation that he be expelled was tabled and a recommendation of censure was brought up, but before it could be passed, Masson resigned. Wow. Back in the day, you could just accusing Congress for taking money was like, oh, and now it's just like,
how dare he?
Now it's just like, yeah, I flew here in a jet from this lobbyist group or whatever.
Dude, if you just look at the numbers of how well Congress has done on the stock market over the past year, somehow they always do a large percentage better than the general population on the stock market. I don't know what it is.
It's really weird. And finally, the 10th, the number one, Abraham Lincoln administration. The Simon Cameron, Lincoln's Secretary of War, he was a Republican, resigned in 1862 due to corruption charges. His behavior was so notorious that Congressman Thaddeus Stevens.
Yes, we had to get a Thaddeus in here. Thaddeus and Erasmus had the best stage show you've ever seen.
It would have been a shame if we got through this whole list without at least one Thaddeus. When discussing Cameron's honesty with Lincoln, told him that I don't think he would steal a red hot stove. When Cameron demanded Stevens retract this statement, Stevens told Lincoln, I believe I told you he would not steal a red hot stove. I now take that back.
So I'm guessing the expression is he would steal a red hot stove.
Yeah.
Meaning the guy steals a lot.
Yeah, he'll steal anything. The Caleb Lyon was appointed governor of the Idaho Territory. An audit revealed he'd embezzled $46,000 in federal funds intended for the Nez Perce Indians. He died before prosecution. Oh, wow. We steal their land and then money for them. Nice.
I can't believe this list hasn't mentioned how Woodrow Wilson got caught fucking a ferret.
Oh, we haven't even gotten to that timeline.
Oh, okay. You didn't get there yet. Okay, sorry.
That'll be. We can do this. We're gonna do this for several episodes, I think, because
there's actually a whole other list of various ferret fucking incidents.
Yes, his Wikipedia is just the ferret fuckers, and that's just the whole page. Let's see. Let's see the last one here. James F. Simmons, a U.S. senator, and confirmed corruption charges against him, reported by the Senate Judiciary Committee, and the charges were then referred to the full Senate for action on July 14th, 1862. The Senate adjourned 3 days later without acting before it could reconvene. Simmons resigned on September 5th. And then this one, we'll do this. Lovell Harrison Rousseau, a U.S. representative, assaulted Iowa Representative, oh, you'll love this, Josiah Bushnell Grinnell.
Yes. Josiah.
He assaulted him on June 14th, 1866 with his iron-handed cane until it broke. Boy, these guys really beat the crap out of each other with canes.
Man, really the only thing holding these guys back is that their canes keep breaking. They need, if they had sturdier canes, if someone was going around back then like, are you tired of your cane breaking mid-beat down? Try new Samuel titanium canes.
It won't break the back of your next opponent. So he was reprimanded by Congress, and then he asked to resign, but he didn't. So those are the first 10 presidential scandals, according to Wikipedia.
There's some good ones, but like I said, our view of what is a scandal has shifted some, and I'd say murdering thousands of Native Americans should be on the list. There's just some things that didn't make it.
Feels like there's some bigger ones.
Yeah.
I'm sure as we get into the other presidents, it'll be some bigger ones, like whatever, just illegal bombing of Cambodia, stuff like that. Just
yes. Kissinger's involved in the entire next list.
Yeah, the next one is just Kissinger. It's just
yeah.
So that's it, buddy.
Well, all right. Do we have extra segments for Patreon?
Yes. Go to patreon.com/government secrets. We will be there in a couple minutes at the end of the show. And if you're listening this at a different time, you can, if you join the Patreon, patreon.com/government secrets, you get the whole back catalog, which is now like 50 some segments, I believe, bonus segments that are very cool. And I don't think we're doing a show next week because you're traveling.
Yeah, no show next week.
No show next week.
So savor this, folks. Rub it all over deep down.
Deep down in you. It's the first show of 2024. So there's going to be, and then starting in February, we're going to have a separate discussion, but the time's going to change in February.
You keep warning us. Yes. I am ready, man. I'm ready.
No, you and I should just talk. We just need to talk about it off the air about finding a better time. But
we're actually going to do the first 5 minutes on a Tuesday, then the next 32 minutes on Thursdays, and then 7 minutes on Saturday at 2 a.m.
Yeah. And we're just going to do a government secrets roulette where we're just going to spin the wheel and see whatever date it lands on, whatever time. That's what we're going to do the show.
Yep. We're going to do a poll of what time is best for people and then do the opposite.
Whatever the number one time slot, we guarantee you that will not be the time slot.
It'll not be it. Yeah, exactly.
We'll find the most inconvenient time slot.
We haven't even announced that we are, was it the 64th?
Yes.
We are the 64th top listened to media podcast in the English speaking world.
Yes. We broke the top 100, which is a big deal. There's thousands of podcasts out there, and we're number 64. So thank you to all for making us number 64. Sorry.
Graham's allergic to success.
I'm sneezing with joy of number 64. So yeah, thank you guys. This is when we say to like and subscribe and give it positive reviews on whatever platform you're listening or watching it to. All of those little analytical things help the show crack the top 100. And that's why we're number 64. So suck it, number 65. We're better than you.
Dude. So we also need to find out who's 63 and really go at them.
Oh, I'm coming at 63.
Dude,
so
we're going to screw them up, man.
Oh, we're going to find out.
They're not going to know their ass from their elbow when we're done with them. Just like that guy I did surgery on, a vagrant I found the other day when I replaced his ass with his elbow.
Sign up for Lee's unsolicited surgery tier on Patreon. He'll come to your house and just perform a surgery that you didn't ask for or want. And he's not qualified to do it, but it's fun. You're supporting the show. So we really appreciate it.
It's true. Qualified is a relative term. It's kind of like money. It has whatever meaning that you view it as having.
Spoken like a true psychopath. That's fantastic. All right, well, go to GrahamElwood.com, support everything I'm doing over there.
I do live streams 4 days a week. You can find them at leecamp.com, but the main place is rumble.com/leecamp.
Sweet. This has been Government Secrets, episode 146. Star Trek technology that was murdered by the CIA and presidential screw-ups.
And we will see you on Patreon, folks.
Go to patreon.com/government secrets. Thanks, everybody.